Welcome in, guys, to episode 29 of Throwing It Around. And today I'm starting my outdoors section of my show with none other than Travis T-Bone Turner from the well-known hunting TV show Bone Collector. And so, without further ado, let's dive in. But first, let's thank our sponsors for today. You want to thank the Law Office of Joseph I. Marchant, who focuses on real estate closings and probate matters with 20 years of experience. For services, contact Joe at 478-374-1505. The Rouse Drugstore is a locally owned and operated independent pharmacy with pharmacists that live in the neighborhood, know patients by name, and are dedicated to keeping you, your family, and our community healthy. They offer fast, friendly service with competitive pricing and free delivery to surrounding counties. Remember that Rouse Drugstore also has Rouse Outfitters, conveniently located inside a boutique with clothing for men, women, and children, with home decor and gifts as well. Shop local and make our community a better place to live. Call today at 229-868-6735 or stop by at 12 South 2nd Avenue, McRae, Helena for help with any of your needs. The Merchants and Citizens Bank is a proud sponsor of Throwing It Around. They've been a vital part of the local community since 1929 and offer traditional products and services people have come to expect. In addition, they offer internet banking, mobile banking. That comes to include mobile deposit, ATM banking, and telephone banking. For all your banking needs, call today at 229-868-5656 or visit them on the web at merchantsandcitizensbank.com. Milton CPA Services LLC is your locally owned full-service accounting, auditing, and tax preparation professionals. Please visit us today for all your bookkeeping and taxation needs to help keep you, your family, or business running smoothly. For expertise and peace of mind, you can call on them. Located in the old Security State Bank building in McRae, Helena, call today at 229-868-5614 or visit them on the web at www.miltoncpaservices.com. Vineyard Doodles is your local puppy business, and if you're looking to add a new member to your family, you can visit them on Facebook, Instagram, or on their website at vineyarddoodles.com for prices and information on new or upcoming litters. Turkey Creek Outfitters, I'll make them a special sponsor for today, being that we're covering this whole topic of the outdoors. They have an upcoming pheasant shoot on November 11th. You can call Kyle at 478-697-3428 and get prices on the shoot and how many spots remain. I want to thank Jason's Fast Lube. Whether your passion is safety, luxury, adventure, or just staying on budget, let Jason's Fast Lube be your service of choice. Located on 200 Avenue, they can help keep your vehicle in top-notch condition. Make an appointment by calling 229-868-5344. Drop in today. Head on over to Jason's today for expert advice and great customer service. Security State Bank, located on 45 West Oak Street in McRae, Helena, or you can reach them at 229-868-6431 for all of your banking needs. So now let's jump into everything. So first, I want to say hello, T-Bone, and it's great, and it's great to see you other than watching on television.
Well, I appreciate you having me, Jacob.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Um, First, I just want to start off with a little bit of a brief intro, like I do with all of my guests. Let you give a brief background into really who you are for those that may not already know you, who are going to listen or either watch to this.
Yeah, yeah. Well, again, I appreciate it. Yeah. My background, taking it way back, I, graduated high school from Douglas County High School in Georgia. I'm from Ohio originally. Been living here since I was 4 or 5. My parents, we moved down here. And then just shortly out of high school, I grew up hunting and fishing and loving the outdoors. My father and uncles and neighbors and stuff. We all did things growing up in the country and such. So I always did that. And then I picked up bow hunting right around my senior year or just out of high school. Began shooting competitively and then started shooting professionally as I worked for Mercedes-Benz in Atlanta. I transitioned over, before I got a wife and kids and responsibilities and such. I took a stab at doing, what I wanted to do for a living, for as a career because, I just, so many people get stuck in jobs that they don't want to do and get a slave to the paycheck. So before I had a lot of responsibilities on me, I tried wanted to do something in the outdoor industry. Started working in a shop. I didn't know what I wanted to do in the outdoor industry. I just wanted to do something in there. So I kind of immersed myself. I was a pro staffer for, a lot of different companies. I shot professionally. I traveled all across the country. And then I began working in a archery pro shop, kind of learned the ins and outs of the retail side. Was lucky enough to win the world championships in 1991. And, I started my own store in 1994. During that time, I met the guys from Realtree and started doing a lot of stuff with them, continued shooting across the country, and then began doing seminars and public speaking and such like that throughout the late 90s. And then in 2006, I sold my store, sold my store out. And then about 2007, 2008, me, Michael, and Nick, which are co-hosts of Bone Collectors, we've all been friends through Realtree, and we started Bone Collectors, our TV show, in 2008. And we've been fortunate enough; it's been one of the top tier shows on the outdoor industry and on social media. So we've been really, really blessed as far as that goes, and we're still continuing on today. So yeah, it's been a crazy way to carve out a living as a career and such. But we continue to say that we're completely blessed, and we just keep pursuing the dream. And thankfully, there's a whole bunch of rednecks that like to share the lifestyle we do, and we continue to have a lot of eyeballs on us. And we like to don't consider ourselves pro hunters. We just happen to be outdoor entertainers. We're no different than most rednecks out there. We just happen to have a camera on us.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I mean, of course I can tell you. I mean, of course, for a show that's been running for years now, I mean, I can see that shows like Bone Collector and those that are pretty much a lot similar to it. I mean, I don't think that the popularity of shows like that will ever really run out because of the deep-rooted love for the outdoors and hunting that there is out there. So my next question, I'll go into this and say I cover the usual sports that people know and love around here, like football, baseball, softball. But so let's kind of focus on your outdoor beginnings here. So when did you first develop that interest in getting outdoors and enjoying all the fun that comes along with it? Which I would assume it was pretty young.
Yeah, it was. I guess I would say when I was 4 or 5, 6 years old, my dad and granddad and my uncle, they always loved squirrel hunting. And for the most part, I didn't really deer hunt until I was just about out of high school or out of high school. We always small game hunted, so we squirrel hunted, rabbit hunted. We did some quail hunting and always stomping around in the woods. Did a lot of fishing. Actually, I had a more of a passion for fishing when I was in middle school and early high school, more so than I did even hunting. But yeah, just like so many folks, their dad or their uncles or the older neighbor and the mentor in the neighborhood, they always took me under their wing. And my dad bought me a bow for good grades when I was in fifth grade, 10 years old, and he didn't know what he was doing. He bought me a bow that was a little bit too hard to pull back, so I kind of had a bad experience at first. But you know, I was intrigued. I just wanted to watch an arrow fly. It's just something magical and therapeutic about just watching an arrow fly, knowing that it was, hey, my muscles pulled that bow back and let that string go, and the lever of the limbs, made that arrow fly. And if you work real hard, you can have precision and win a few tournaments and get a few Happy Gilmore checks, and then on top of that, you can kill a few critters and fill a freezer.
Oh yeah, oh I love it, man. So I know of course I've heard you talk about the work you did before going into the outdoor industry like for full time, and I heard you mention Mercedes and all. Is there a way that you can go into a bit more detail about, I mean, when exactly you started getting into the workforce, what you did, and then how you kind of transitioned your way out of it?
Yeah, a lot of people ask that, like, how do you know what you're going to do for a living? You never, you know, it's almost like you graduate high school and the pressures of the world are put on you. It's like, what are you going to do the rest of your life? And
Mm-hmm.
at 18 years old, you're just trying to figure life out for that matter. And It's like, what are you going to study in school? Are you going to go to college? Are you going to go to a VOTEC school? Or what kind of job are you or trade you going to learn? And so many kids, I mean, you're kind of lost till you're 25, 26, or even close to 30. You don't know what you want to do. And I was no different. So I never made good grades in school. Later on found out I'm ADD. I can't even read a magazine article without my mind drifting off into, hey, I need to cut the grass, or hey, I need to go do this or something like that. So it's hard to stay focused. But I made I got through high school, I graduated, and I was like, well, I definitely am not a college person, but I worked, from the time I was 12 or 13. My dad, he was a fireman for the city of Atlanta, and on his days off, he had a swimming pool company, and I would work for him during the summers. And then also there was a sewing company in the town I grew up in, and I worked for them, and they had a big farm as well. So I worked for them at their sewing company, and then I did baling hay, roofing, taking care of cows, working on their farm, just anything they needed done. So, and then I had my own grass cutting business in our neighborhood. I would always cut, 4 or 5 yards all summer long. So I was always a grinder, making extra side money to buy, fishing rod and reels or shotgun shells or bicycles, motorcycles, things like that. And then when I got the early release program in high school, I got a job with Mercedes Benz, restoring old Mercedes and doing service work for Mercedes Benz. And that was a good job. I was making pretty good money working for Mercedes, working on Mercedes. And that after high school, I just continued working there. I went, full time, and it worked out real well. I actually ended up working there from high school on for 9 years. But while I was going there, I was like, I can't do this the rest of my life. I don't want to have to drive all the way into Atlanta. It was an hour one way into Atlanta, and the hustle and bustle and traffic, me being an outdoor country kid. I said, well, I think I want to do. My dad had mentioned about being a fireman like him, and I just wasn't cut out for that. So I thought HVAC. I was wanting to do heating and air conditioning. I thought that you don't have to do the same thing twice. You're going to a different job all the time. I said that, and you're always going to need heating and air. There's always going to be job security. So I went to 2 years worth of schooling to become a HVAC technician. I graduated, and I never worked in that field. By the time I graduated after 2 years of schooling, I was like, man, I just do not want to do this for a living. So throughout that whole time, I was shooting competitively, and I'm like, you know what? I just love this. I couldn't get enough of it. Every
Mm-hmm.
free moment I was working on my bow and shooting, and I was pretty good at it. I found out I had a knack for it and was winning tournaments, and I thought, man, I just want to do something in the outdoor industry. So I quit my job. Like I said, I took a huge pay cut, $10,000 to $15,000 a year pay cut, went to work in a store, and learned the ins and outs of the retail side of it. And then after 2 years of, doing it for the store and still shooting, competitively. And um, then I went, and me and another guy, a buddy of mine, opened our own store together. And then 2 years after that, I bought him out, and that was the store we had. Archery Unlimited opened in '94, and then I ended up selling it in 2006, 2007.
Cool, cool. So let me go. I want to see which one of these questions I want to ask next. I'm trying to place them in a good order here. So I would say you're one of the staples in the archery community when it comes to, I guess you say, chatter among fans whenever it comes to bow hunting, and also take into account your past in competition archery. So one of my questions was which one of them you did first. So you've already answered that. So I mean, so you're not still actively competing, and you're
Yeah,
not still
no, I'm not. No, I'm
okay.
not. Actually, I I started in competitive archery in 1988, and I also killed my first deer with a bow in 1988. I did them at the same time, but
Okay.
or the same year, I should say. And then I'd seen that I kind of had a knack for it, hand-eye coordination, and just loved it. It's kind of a cross between NASCAR, where you're always, you have to work on your bow and you're trying to build a better mousetrap. But then on the same token, it's not like baseball, football, or basketball, where you're wanting that adrenaline rush. And with this, it's like golf. You have to suppress your nervous energy. You have to have good um, muscle memory, and to suppress it. And you have to learn the undulation and windage and shade, judging distance and shadowing, and wind has an effect on it. So it was a cross between being a good bow technician, which I love just tinkering and trying to build a better mousetrap and build a better setup for a bow. And then that just took me towards working on our bows. So yeah, I was probably deep. I was more competent and more um, I guess skilled at the target side of it and the archery and the archery competition side of it more so than I was the hunting side. And then, as I got older, the prize money was going down quite a bit in the early 2000s, and I'm like, I mean, I still competed for 12 years. I never missed a national tournament. I mean, I was just going all over the place, but started a family early 2000s, and I started working with Realtree
Mm-hmm.
and Michael and Nick, and I seen some doors opening to do stuff in the outdoor entertainment and then bow hunting and getting to travel and do a lot more speaking, which was more of a consistent and a better paycheck, and or I seen lot better ways or more stable ways to advance in the industry by going the TV route. So I went that way and kind of pulled back the reins on the competing. Now, up until probably 5 or 6 years ago, I still would shoot tournaments each year, but no, I haven't in the last probably 6 or 7 years. I haven't shot any organized tournaments. I mean, I shoot all the time. I work on
Right.
bows all the time. I
Mm-hmm.
still got a shop in my basement. I still set up bows for celebrities and, you know, a lot of the baseball players, Chipper Jones, a lot of the guys I set up their bows as well as entertainers. So I still set up a lot and I still shoot all the time, but not on a competitive level, so to speak.
Okay, I got you. So basically, you would basically want to be one of those, I guess, pop up contestants where at a couple of years ago you may pop up at this one and then choose to go to another one a little bit while later. But I mean, you weren't that consistently going here and then there and then there.
Yeah, I wasn't on I guess you would call it like in bass fishing, a tournament trail.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I shot the trail in all the organized all the way from 1988 all the way to about 2002. I very 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 seldom missed any trail or tournament or anything. And then from 2002 till about 2012 or 13, I would shoot one or two national tournaments a year. And then on a local level, I would shoot, quite a few local, state, and Alabama, regional tournaments. I would shoot, a handful of those each year. But in the last 5, 6, 7 years, I've only shot maybe one or two local tournaments, and that's about it.
Got you. I got you.
Yep. I miss it. I really love it, but
Hmm.
life gets busy and you got other responsibilities. So
Oh, that's true. That's true. Of course, I know it may be hard to, but if there is one award or title from your time in competitive archery that you would say you're most proud of, what would it be?
Um, they're all special in a certain way, but
Mm-hmm.
I would guess the world championships. I won the
Mm-hmm.
world championships in '91. There was 37 states represented in 4 countries, as well as I think there was 540 something shooters in my class.
Wow.
So yeah, winning the world championships in '91 would probably be it. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, got really lucky that day.
Oh yeah. And of course, the main reason I typed that one out, I mean, I noticed you mentioned earlier about winning that title, and then I was thinking, oh, maybe there's one somewhere that may, aside from that world championship, where you maybe had to put in more work, or this one just meant more because of how, I guess you say how strenuous the other competitors might have been, where you really had to be on your A game.
Yeah, well,
Hmm.
to deep dive into that, I'm proud of that just because of the amount of competitors that there was. It was early
Yeah.
in my career. I was extremely young, and I was
Hmm.
shooting against guys that were 15, 20 years into competitive archery, and I had only been shooting for 3 years.
Oh
So
wow. Hmm.
yeah, so I was really like the young rookie out there, and I guess I showed out and had a great tournament. However, it seems like if you deep dove in, I'm proud of that for because it is an accomplishment. And I
Yeah.
did do that. However, I didn't know as much about archery and or the fundamentals and shot preparation and good form and a good mindset as much as I do say even now. So I'm more proud of my track record after that because I went through target panic, which is something that we have. It's kind of like the yips in golf. It's a mental thing. But I went through that the year after I won the world championship. So 92, 93, I was learning more how to be a consistent or really, really consistent archer. So the wins that I had after that and or placing high consistently on tournaments, for the next 10 years, I'm really proud of because I came through target panic. A lot of times that's a career killer as far as that goes,
Hmm.
having target panic. Whereas before, I felt like when I won the world championships, I was basically like, I just didn't know any better. I didn't know great form. I didn't know that you're supposed to squeeze and, push, pull, squeeze. I didn't know good proper form. So I was just out there, just out of pure, how you get so many young players in baseball or anything
Yeah.
like that. They don't know that they're not supposed to be able to do that. So they don't get in their own way and they just perform extremely well. And that's kind of what I was doing at an early age. And then I kind of perfected my craft, so to speak. So with that said, I'm kind of proud I made it through the target panic days and was more consistent. And, I was consistently a threat, I guess you could say, for the years to come after that. And that was because I uh, really, really deep dove into making sure that I was um, consistent and archery is definitely a big mind game. So
Basically, making sure all those pieces did fall into place at the right time.
absolutely, yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. So I am proud of that. But it's just like any career. You can always look back and dissect it, and it's just there's a lot of ebbs and flows and ups and downs and stuff. So it takes the bad times to make the good times.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, I definitely understand that. I mean, and that right there can kind of apply to really anything in life.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Let's see. If I'm not mistaken, some of those competitions do actually take place outdoors, or I have heard of some of them taking place outdoors. I honestly don't follow competition archery more than I do a lot of bow hunters, really. So, is there one place in particular that sticks out in your mind in terms of just beautiful scenery, or just a place that you never thought you'd be able to visit?
Yeah, actually, the type of archery, there's all kinds of different competition archery, but the one that I did the most is 3D archery. And to tell you a little bit about that, it's all done outside. Well, pretty much all done outside. 95% is all outside. And what it is animal, 3D dimensional animal targets, and
Okay.
they have concentric rings inside the animal that you can't see with your naked eye. So it's just like a hunting scenario. You don't know the yardage. You have to be able to judge the distance. It's 60 yards or less. You have to judge the distance, look with your binoculars, see the concentric rings with your binoculars, and then based off of shading or another arrow in the target, you have to aim off of it. So you're shooting at a ring. They have a 12 ring, a 10 ring, an 8 ring, and a 5. And you have to aim at a certain ring that you can't see based off of where there's shadows or muscles in the animal. So you're trying to hit a bullseye that you can't see
Mm,
at a distance you don't know of. So it's really, really tough. It's more so than just like, hey, I've got to be able to shoot good. You got to be able to shoot good. You got to be able to see good. You got to be able to reference good, judge the shadows, the wind, and judge how far it is. Because if you're off by 2 or 3 yards, you're gonna drop out low or hit way high. So
hmm.
there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of strategy, and it's a big on the mind game. So that was the type of archery that I did the most of. However, there's indoor archery, which you
Hmm.
see in Las Vegas, and then you also have um, uh, all kinds of field archery and such too.
Okay, I got you. Okay, understand. Take a
Yep.
quick take a quick pause to thank the sponsors one more time. Want to give a big thanks to Riles Outfitters, jointly along with Riles Drugstore, the law office of Joseph I. Marchant, Merchants and Citizens Bank, Milton CPA Services LLC, Vineyard Doodles, Turkey Creek Outfitters, Jason's Fast Lube, and Security State Bank. So now let's uh so now let's jump into what basically would be the hunting side. I mean, my first question or two will tie back into basically both hunting and competition. So, of course, I know the equipment ties into both fields. Really, I mean, there might be a little bit of a difference between competition and the equipment you may use when it comes to hunting. So, I think we'll just start with the bow and like actually work down into more specifics. I know, uh, has it always been Hoyt for you?
I started off. Well, the first bow I had was a PSC, and then I had
Uh,
a Martin, and then a high country. I started shooting for high country for 1 year, and then I was asked to be on the national team for Browning.
okay.
Browning used to have a bow company, and they sold to PSC early on. This was years ago, but from 1991, 92, and 93, I shot for Browning. I actually won the world championship with a Browning bow,
Okay.
and then in 94, 95, and part of 96, I shot for PSE, and then in halfway through 96 began shooting for PSE dissolved their shooting program, and I began shooting for um, Hoyt, and I've been with Hoyt since 1996. So yeah,
Okay.
quite a long time with Hoyt.
Cool. Cool. Pretty long standing relationship. I like it.
Yeah, great company.
Oh yeah. I think we'll work down with I think we'll go with the release now. I know when it comes to watching, from what I've watched with Bone Collector and I've watched you on the internet before too. I mean, you and Nick and Michael are really big True Ball fans, and
Yes.
uh, and of course I know y'all have collaborated to make, I think, is it more than one release now, or I think it's, or is it more than one model? Thank you, froze, T-Bone. T-Bone had to exit the chat. Guess we'll wait on him to come back in. Something happened to the connection there.
Well, it's probably you know how technology is. I don't know if it was my end or whatever, but I think it was my end. But I'm back.
Oh yeah, I wasn't sure. I started talking about the release question, and then you just and then you I just saw your face there, and it wasn't moving.
Yep, I you had said something. Last thing I heard was you saying you guys are a big. I know you guys are a big fan of True Ball. That's the last
Yeah,
thing I heard.
yeah. That's basically where I left off. I know you and Michael and Nick and basically everybody that's been on Bone Collector I've heard have always been big fans of True Ball, which was, well, it seems to be your go-to release from the beginning. Of course, I know. Uh, Pretty sure y'all have made, like, is it different models? I mean, is it different, like, generations of the same model that y'all collaborated with?
Yeah, I helped. I say we. Mainly, but all of us helped design the True Ball Beast, which we've been shooting the same one since 2007, 2008. So we're real proud of that. But yeah, we've made some updates on it throughout the years. But yeah, we also have the T Rex. There's several releases that we have the Bone Collector name associated with, but
T Rex is
that
the thumb
we
button release, right?
that is, yeah, the
Okay.
T-Rex is a T handle with the thumb button, yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, across the board though, True Ball is probably, if it's not the best, it's close to it. It's the probably the best release company across the board for tournament archery and for hunting archery, because they just offer so many different models. I mean, even outside of the Bone Collector brand, as far as hunting releases. But yeah, they're real precision, real innovative. So we're real proud to be a part of True Ball releases. But there are a lot of other manufacturers out there that make a good release as well.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And I know my follow-up question to that would be just more of curiosity. Like, when it comes to tournament archery, I mean, of course, mostly I got some examples here. Mostly everybody goes for a turn up that I've seen goes for a thumb button. I mean, I've got the Ultra View thumb button here that I bought not too long ago. But of course, this is pretty much the go-to for people that go hunting a lot, which would be the index, which would be the index trigger. So is is the thumb button really the standard go-to for when it comes to competition archery?
Well, you can use either one, but most people use a T handle or a handheld release, a T
Mm,
handle, because it's the way that you are executing.
hmm
The correct way and form is to use back tension to
Right.
execute the release with back tension, not to isolate your thumb, not to isolate your finger. So even if you are using an index finger, you
Mm,
should actually wrap your finger around the trigger and then build up tension, but yet it should be executed with your back muscles. You should be pushing, you should be pulling, and your finger shouldn't be isolated, and you shouldn't punch the trigger. And a lot of people go to, and or people that are tournament archers or seasoned archers, they go to the T handle just because you can anchor better on your face, and you're not really necessarily worried about dropping the release, or you're not worried about making noises when you're tournament archery. So more people use that because it's a more precision type release. But in a lot of instances, and the reason the index finger and a wrist strap is more so for a tournament, I mean, for a hunting application, is because you can pull more weight with it wrapped around your wrist.
right.
You're not
Yeah.
having to use just your fingers. Usually tournament bows are a lot, less than 65 pounds, and hunting bows can be upwards of 70, 75 pounds. So you can pull more weight. Plus, it stays with you. You don't have to worry about dropping it or reaching for it and then hitting the trigger and it falling out of the tree. It stays with you. And then also, most people don't get to practice all year long, so it doesn't take as long to get used to, because it's just like firing a gun.
Yeah.
Basically, instead of doing a trigger this way, you're just doing it this way. So it's easier for people to pick up on, and there's a comforting factor knowing that, hey, I'm tied to that bow. I can be able to pull it back. I'm not going to have to worry about letting it go.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. And next point on the list, what about when it comes to uh, it's it's pretty much a staple. I mean, everybody in competition archery has a stabilizer on their bows. Some people choose to shoot stabilizers on their hunting bow as well. I mean, what exactly are the benefits for those that may not know about it, and are they a must-have in terms of hunting, being we're in that category now?
Yeah, stabilizers, a lot of people just look at them, and if you're not an archer, you look at it and like, wow, that's like a TV antenna of some sort, or
Right.
what you got going on there, especially when you see the competition archeries when they're 30 and 36 inches long. It's like, what the heck you got going on there? It looks like a fishing pole kind of. So, with that said, stabilizer does a couple of things. To go back a little bit and deep dive, Hoyt makes a bow that is a carbon riser, which is extremely light. And the advantage to a light bow is, like, well, I like a heavy bow. People say I like shooting a heavy bow, and a heavy bow is more accurate. As long as it's not too heavy, slows your oscillations down so that you can aim real good. But the advantages to a light bow is you can take a light bow and you can weight it where you want to. Put more weight in the front, put more
Right.
weight down the back in the offset. So you can weight it where you want to. Whereas if you start with a really heavy machine riser bow, a real heavy bow, then all you're going to do is just add more mass weight to it. You can't balance it as well. So that's one advantage to a carbon riser. But to answer your question about stabilizers do based off of leverage. Just like if you were a tightrope walker, you're not going to take a broom handle and try to walk across a tightrope wire. You're going to take the long pole that
Yeah.
they use, that's 30-foot long, so that you got better balance. Same thing holds true. You can take a 6-ounce total weight stabilizer, but because it's 30 inches long, it leverages and it slows your oscillations down. Now, it does that. It balances the bow. It adds mass weight, and it balances the bow by putting the weight where you want it, in front and or in the back, because everything that we bolt on a bow is on the right hand side for a right-handed archer. So everybody has a natural cant. You always want to lean the bow to one side. Whereas with that offset, you can have a lightweight but yet high leveraged stabilizer to help you maintain straight up and down and keeping your bow level. So between the offset and the stabilizer in the front, you can balance the bow so that you can aim better. You can aim where your movements are smaller and they're slower. So therefore your sight window and your sight picture is better. So therefore you execute a better shot. Which is great. And then on top of that, the more weight and the material that we make them out of, carbon, and you have a lot of Navcom rubberized material, it absorbs the energy from the bow so that on the shot, the bow doesn't have a, it doesn't vibrate, it just goes, so it's dead, it's quiet, you don't alert deer, it's more comfortable to shoot so it don't hurt your joints, and a comfortable shot is going to make you perform better. So it slows your sight picture down so you execute a better shot. And then also it makes it more comfortable so that you're enjoying the shot, and then you make a better shot. All these things are splitting hairs, but they all add up to tighter and tighter and more accuracy.
I got you. I got you. That makes sense. We'll go down to in terms of arrows and broadheads. We'll start with. I think we'll start with the arrows. I mean, some people will make the argument of, well, why don't I just go to Walmart and grab me some arrows and I can go start hunting with them? Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure the ones at Walmart may be fairly well. I mean, I'm one of those people that have just started out. I'm considering myself a novice in archery hunting, and that's what I done the first with my first batch of arrows. I mean, I'm down to probably like 3 of them because I've lost them in the woods trying to shoot and not finding them and all. But in terms of how important are like good quality arrows for somebody, and in terms of what should somebody be looking for in terms of, I guess you could say, I think well, like grain. I know I heard you mention FOC a lot, and I think stands for front of center, right?
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay, stands for front of center. So kind of educate me a little bit. That's one category that I'm not too well versed in about the importance of good arrows. I mean, so far I haven't broken my arrows. I mean, you would figure that just coming from Walmart that they may not be as good quality as some that may come from, I guess, more well known companies. I know I've heard of Easton having has well made arrows. I know you've mentioned some of your Instagram videos. What's the name of those arrows you shoot?
Cirrus archery.
Serious, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Just in terms of arrow quality and the importance of making sure you have good ones, kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so when you're setting up a bow, you know, everybody's under a budget. I always tell people there's 3 areas that you don't want to skimp on. You know, like you got sights, you got stabilizers, you got quivers, you got all these kind of things, but there's a couple of areas that you don't want to hinder your accuracy. You've got your bow and it's time to set it up. The 3 areas you don't want to skimp on and get really high quality and put a little bit more money towards is your arrow rest, because if the arrow rest is not performing right, you can have a $500 sight and you're not going to make up for a poorly executing rest. So spend money on a really good rest, a good release, so that you don't have any movement or slack in your release. You can make sure that the parts are machined well, and it's a good performing release so that you can execute good. That's going to help you on your accuracy. And the other is arrows. But, you know, if someone's just getting into it and kind of getting their feet wet, by all means, you know, getting a practice set of arrows or a starter set of arrows just so that you can learn the fundamentals. I get that. But when you get a little more seasoned and or it's time to go hunting or it's time to start competing, then by all means you want to invest in that, because think about it. The arrow and the arrow components is what connects you to the target. I mean, that's the only thing. It's like electricity. It's a lifeline, so to speak. So after you have cut the arrow loose, the burden is lifted off of you. It's all on your choice of arrow and the consistency of it. So you want to make sure that you get a consistent spine so that it's the same stiffness, 360 degrees, and it's the correct stiffness for the type of bow you're shooting and the poundage you're shooting. Because if the spine is not correct, if it's too weak, it's always going to be flimsy going down through there. If it's not stiff enough to absorb the energy that the bow is producing, then you're going to always have tuning problems, and it's always going to affect your accuracy. So you have to have the correct stiffness and or make sure I'd lean more towards the too stiff side than I would too weak. Too weak is a big problem.
Okay.
So then after that, you want to have the consistent grain weights, because if they're not consistent in grain weights, well, you can have one arrow that weighs 450 grains and the next arrow weighs 460. That's going to show up when you're shooting down range, beyond 30, 40 yards. You're going to hit 2 inches high, 3 inches high, and your groups are going to open up. So you want the consistent grain weight, and of course the straightness. You want to make sure that they're straight. The threshold I like to stay is at least 3 thousandths or more. Ideally, 1 thousand straightness is the most, but most folks can't shoot, or most people can't shoot the difference. I mean, even me too, you can't shoot the difference in the 3 thousandths. And then you want to make sure that you get good components, and heavier components or adjustable weight components to increase the FOC in your arrow, to increase the point weight. FOC is front of center percentage, meaning more weight towards the front of the arrow, so that the arrow is, instead of being balanced right in the middle, you've got your balance point moves closer and closer to the front, so that you have more weight up front. And what that does is it helps with penetration. Usually you have a beefier insert, which is going to keep your broadhead on there, which is going to help with penetration and stability and durability, integrity, structural integrity, so that your broadhead will stay together while it's penetrating the animal. It's going to help in wind, so that you won't have wind drift when you have more weight up front, as well as an overall weight, which is helping on penetration. So there's a lot of advantages for having, the right percentage of FOC. For me, I like something between like 14 and 19 is a good wheelhouse to be in for a hunting setup. Tournament wise, you can back off on that a little bit. You can go more of around 11 to 15%. That's a good FOC for tournament archery. But yeah, and then most people shoot a carbon arrow, but then you can incorporate aluminum in it, whether it's a full metal jacket or a ACC, which has aluminum incorporated into it, which definitely, in my opinion, is a straighter, a more consistent spine with the aluminum incorporated in it. However, with aluminum, it will take a bend. It's not as tough. So if it does get bent, it stays bent. Whereas a carbon, they're pretty much either they're straight or they're trash. You can throw them in the trash if they break or whatever. But yeah, to answer your question, Walmart arrows are equally as tough, just because of the liability of it. You can't have brittle arrows where they're breaking, and go, with a chance of an accident of going through somebody's arm or something like that. So they're equally as tough. However, they may not be quite as straight. They may not be as consistent spine wise. I highly recommend, going to a independent dealer or an independent pro shop, that they will custom build you a set of arrows, and or like the company I was talking about, Serious Archery. It's a boutique company, so their website is so easy to navigate that you can manipulate and go down through there, pick out spines. You can basically try all kinds of different setups to see which one's going to work best for you based off of your draw length, arrow weight, and everything like that, so that you can build you the perfect arrow. And then plus their support.
You kind of buffered a little bit. What was that last thing you said?
Yeah, they're gonna make sure that you get the right arrow. Meaning their customer service is second to none, as far as making sure that you get good, strong ethics, stainless steel components. That's been a kind of a pet peeve of mine for a long time. Is I feel like that old song, I was country when country wasn't cool.
Yeah.
I feel like I was preaching FOC and heavier weights long before there was even options. Whereas now we have options as far as components. I work with a company called Ethics, and Ethics, that they come standard on all serious arrows. They're stainless steel. They're long, so it increases the static spine of the arrow. They're long inserts. You can change the weights of them. Whereas, like on a lot of arrows, when you first get them from the manufacturer, no matter who it is, whether it's Easton, Beeman, Victory, all of them, their original inserts are, they only weigh 20 grains and they're 15 cents. Sometimes they're not straight and everything. And I'm like, this is the most important piece. You're holding a $25 broadhead into a $15 arrow, and you're going to spend 15 cents on the connection point. Doesn't that need to be straight? Doesn't that need to be extremely strong? So that's why I'm glad that, we're evolving into uh, archery components that are really, really strong and help with the structural integrity, like the Ethics and what Sirius offers. And even Easton and Gold Tip, they're even offering those things too, like an upgrade, so to speak, not your standard, which comes with them. So yeah, there's a lot of ways and a lot of configurations, just like if you're into, rifle shooting and all kinds of different ammo and different weights and different types of powder and stuff like that. Yeah, there's lots of things to consider when getting an arrow. But yeah, don't skimp on it. Get you a good arrow, because it will pay off for you.
I got you. 10-4 on that. Take a little bit of a turn away from the equipment right now, and let me ask this one funny question before we jump into more details. In terms of people who got to know you through Instagram, I know, of course, I know you haven't done this in a while because, of course, there because there's been other things that have come up. Uh, when exactly did you come up with the idea of DJ T-Bone? Yeah.
Well, I haven't talked about that in a long time. Uh, I don't know. Just like I was
Hmm.
traveling a lot. This was
Hmm.
pre-COVID. So I was traveling a lot, and like I just to kind of help myself stay awake, driving, long distances and
Hmm.
stuff. I've always been one to sing along with the radio and stuff
Right.
like that. And everybody always says, "Man, you're like a radio announcer." So I just thought, man, I'll just, just something funny. I thought Instagram stories and,
Hmm.
back when there was Vines and stuff like that, I just thought it would be little 15. I was doing it more for amusement for myself,
Hmm.
you know, just basically like trying to stay awake or keep myself amused or stay in a good mood and stuff. And then I guess, people kind of took to it. So I just, tried to do the Ron Burgundy type radio announcer type guy. So that
Just
was it.
tried to keep doing it because people really seem to take to it
Yeah.
and like it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I tell you why I haven't done it lately is because, I lost my leg to cancer,
Yep.
about a year and a half or 2 years ago, and so I have to drive with my hand. So I got hand controls,
Hmm.
so I'm not able to fidget around and stuff. I can't
Right.
answer the phone or do any of that stuff now. So I got to focus on driving for
Oh
sure
yeah.
now. So
Oh, for
I'm not
sure.
able to I'm not able to hold the phone and kind of you know uh, put it on the radio now. So that's what DJ T Boner's handicapped now.
Oh, I understand. I understand. Yeah, well, I'd say probably the first Instagram story that I watched where you were doing that, I was like, my first assumption that, and that's the reason I wanted to bring it up, being I finally got the interview about it, is my first assumption was he's bored.
Yeah.
But of course, I mean, honestly, the best ideas come out of boredom and need for self amusement.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's what it was. I was just
Hmm.
doing it. I'm like, I've always been one that, so many people when they post stuff on social media, they overthink it and they're so concerned about what somebody's going to think. Well, I've never been shy and I that those kind of things that never really bothers me, Michael or Nick. And I was doing it out of self, just amusing myself. And if somebody laughed, they laughed. If they didn't, they didn't.
Right.
It's no big deal to me. It's not gonna, change the way I think about myself. So I was just having fun for myself, and people kind of took to it. We actually made up some shirts. We had a bunch of shirts that's got DJ Two Bone from Club Silverado. So so it just
I,
having fun. That's all.
I love it. I love it. Of course, you've already touched on the years and all, but kind of talk about of course, if there is a story behind it. I mean, when exactly did you first meet Michael Waddell and get involved with Bone Collector, which got into the hunting journey for you that really got your name out there and become big in it?
Yeah, I met Michael when I had my store. He lived in a town about 30, 45 minutes over near Woodbury in Manchester, which actually grew up in Booger Bottom. That's a real story. I mean that there
Hmm.
really is a place called Booger Bottom, but that's
Right.
where he grew up. And he worked for Realtree, and then I began working on like David Blanton, a lot, his bow, and a lot of the guys, the cameramen, and then as well as Michael started working on his bow, and just met him through Realtree in
Okay.
probably the late '80s, probably 97, 96, 7, 8, as well as I met Nick about that same time because Nick was a guide out in Wyoming, and Realtree would come out there and he started doing some camera work, freelance camera work for Realtree, and then we all met together. We're all about the same age, and we met each other through Realtree, and very similar personalities, very similar in age, so we just got along. And even to this day, everybody's like, when are you and Nick going to do your own show? And and you guys are successful, or like, don't y'all hate each other, or y'all are been together for so long, or isn't there any fights and stuff? But I mean, honestly, we get along great. I mean, like we have families, and we get
Hmm.
just I shouldn't say distracted, but we get taken with responsibilities. But yeah, as soon as we get to see each other, we're just like, I mean, it's just like high school kids. It's almost like a
Right.
slumber party every time. So
Right.
yeah, we love hanging out with each other.
Of course, the relationship shows. I mean, you could actually tell. I mean, it's. I would probably say high school friends would be a great descriptor, or I was gonna say it's more like brothers. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. It's
Yeah.
we hope that, and we think our show's successful. Hopefully, this don't come across as arrogant, but we hope our show's successful based off of, yeah, it's a hunting show, and we all strive to kill big deer, but at the end of the day, our show doesn't hinge on that. We hope it's like you watch us and people say like, man, I'd like to share camp with them, or this is just like my buddies. I'm like watching another group of friends have a good time, and this is the way my hunting camp is. And God, I just love how much they enjoy life and the outdoors and hunting and stuff. And the cherry on top is, yeah, we do kill a critter occasionally, but the
Hmm.
most part of it is the meat and potatoes is we're just good old boys and good friends, and we hope that we're just kind of celebrating everybody's lifestyle and brotherhood. It's just we happen to have a camera watching ours.
Right, right, and I honestly have had the same like feeling while watching some of the episodes, and I would think like, man, if I could be in the same place as those people, because I have buddies of my own that act the same way. I mean, we pick on each other. I mean, likely
Yeah,
because it, and this may sound weird to some people, but some of the picking like, in terms of like fun picking, I'll say,
yeah.
in terms of some people may think that that's you're actually talking bad about somebody, or like, or you're not, or you're actually purposefully being mean. It's like, no, for people, this kind of picking is some of the stuff that's not taken seriously. It's all for laughs. I mean, it may sound kind of oxymoronic for some people, but some people really get laughs out of it.
Oh, big time. I mean, I
Mhm.
tell people all the time, if like if we're picking on you, that means we love you. That's a
Yeah,
term of endearment. That means like if we're not picking on you,
yeah,
that means that you ain't in the clique, because
right.
it's almost like it's a brotherhood and a brotherly thing, meaning like, yeah, I'm talking about Nick or I'm talking about Michael, but if somebody starts, jumping on them on social media that don't know them and saying something bad, well, me and Nick or whoever will jump on them like a duck on a Jew bug. It's almost like, hey, I can pick on him and Nick can pick on him, on Michael, but you can't. You don't know him. So,
Right.
it's, how it is. It's like when you see two brothers, kind of fighting, you think, well, hey, I'm going to pick on one of them side. But as soon as you jump in there, the two
Hmm.
brothers are going to band together because blood's thicker than water, and they're going to beat the
Hmm.
snot out of the outsider.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Of
same
course.
type of thing.
Of course, I know there's a man that we went to church with. Sadly, not too long ago, he sadly passed away. But I know almost everybody inside the church. I mean, you could tell he was one of the most loving men that was inside the church. I mean, he would always pick on everybody because he loved everybody in there.
Yep.
And we were joking around one day, like during Sunday school. My dad was telling a guy that he worked inside the church I was with. He said, "Man, I don't really think Mr. Lamar likes me." And he said, "No, if Lamar didn't like you, he'd tell you."
Yeah.
Yeah.
He'd
I mean,
tell you, or he wouldn't say nothing.
yeah, yeah. He'd either tell you or wouldn't say anything at all. But yeah, but the I could tell just the relationship that y'all have on the show, and I know that's got to translate off camera, and
Yeah.
of course I could tell. It just kind of reminded me of like I said, the man we went to church with, Mr. Lamar, and some buddies of mine. My next question, you've kind of hinted toward it. So I was going to ask, were you one of the first ones to come on board Bone Collector outside of the Waddells and all, or it seems like you and Nick might have jumped on around the same time.
Yeah, it's actually we were I guess if you wanted to call it a charter member, yeah, it
Right.
was me, Michael, and Nick. We started. It's been the same ever since then. Yeah, I mean, we always have folks that we consider the brotherhood or whatever, but yeah, it's from day one. It's always been me, Michael, and Nick.
I got you. I got you.
Yeah,
So then this next question kind of revolves around your knowledge of archery more than anything else. I mean, the culmination of that knowledge is over many years, and one of the physical representations. I know you mentioned having the store that you sold, but one thing I wanted to talk about was the dojo.
Yeah.
You know, the dojo, I mean, but points goes to you for creativity with that name. I mean, you seem to have all the necessities down there that you have, and I jokingly put in here that from what I've seen in the background of some videos you've shot back there, it could pass as a small town archery shop.
Yeah.
Well, just from some of the shots I've seen, I mean, it may be smaller than it looks, it may be bigger than it looks, but uh, let's see, where's the question? One that comes straight to mind that you've had some big names in there. You mentioned, I know, the real tree guys, Tyler, and I'm sure you maybe have had Bill there some as well. You mentioned Chipper. Uh, because I know not too long ago, I know Austin Riley really jumped on board hunting with real tree a lot too. Have you has Austin paid you a visit yet?
No, he hadn't. Actually, I talked with him this morning. Though I did talk with him this morning, but we haven't we've talked on the phone and we've texted and I've things like that. But he hasn't been here yet. No, he hasn't.
Okay.
He with his new baby and stuff like that. I think his wife's got him to where he can go on like one hunt a year and that's about
Oh
it.
yeah.
So
Oh
and
yeah.
hopefully, me being a Braves fan, I hope he stays pretty busy through November.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, the dojo is just what it is. Meaning, like when we built our house, I'd sold my store, like I told you earlier, like 2006, 2007. We built this house in 2009, and my wife said, "Why are you building an archery shop in the basement?" I said, listen, honey, even if I dip septic tanks for a living, I'm going to have an archery shop in my basement. I mean, I just love anything to do with it, working on bows, and it's not like it's open to the store or anything. I mean, open to the public. It's
Right.
just
Yeah.
I built an indoor range. So it's 23 yards long and it's 10 feet wide. That's all. It's real narrow.
Right.
But I got a bench in there and I keep some product because of I used to do I used to have distributorships, accounts with distributorships. So I've kept them up with Papes and Lancaster Archery so I can order product and I keep things stocked up and it looks like it too. And we
Hmm.
film a lot of tips and stuff like that. So throughout social media and YouTube and stuff, you'll see it. I just feel like it makes people feel better. Like if you're getting archery instruction, it looks like you're in an archery shop,
Right.
rather than being,
Hmm.
like if you're hearing some medical advice and you see a guy in a tree stand giving you medical advice, the backdrop just don't fit.
Right.
So with
Hmm.
that said, we got that backdrop. We're always down there. I'm working on friends' bows. I'm working on people in the industry's bows. I'm working on celebrities and stuff like that. I still set up probably 40 or 50 bows a year. So yeah, all of that being said, yeah, it's the dojo has kind of taken on its own personality, so to speak. So yeah, we move out of the way and you shoot down through there. I can shoot 20 yards indoors. So if it's raining and I need to get a bow tuned up and sighted into 20 while it's raining or dark or anything, I can. You can actually lift up my garage door and I can stand in the dojo and shoot all the way outside 70 yards straight into a target I have outside and then turn around back and shoot the target that I have in the back of the dojo. And I can shoot 70 yards from the target outside into the house. So I always told people, I said, back when I was walking, I said, fat guy's going to maximize his steps. So he's going to, he's going to make sure that he can,
Oh yeah.
shoot both ways rather than wasting a bunch of steps going pulling arrows and having to shoot again. So I made it to where you could shoot both ways, and it's really well lit outside and inside, so we can shoot all night long. You know how it is in Georgia in the summertime; it's a lot cooler at 10 o'clock at night to shoot
Oh
some
yeah.
arrows than it is at 4 in the afternoon. So, but yeah, we've had a lot of good folks down here. Zach Brown, do a lot of work
Okay.
for him. Set up a bow for Justin Timberlake and his manager, and then a lot of country singers, not Thomas Rhett, but Red Akins. Um, and a lot of those guys, Dallas Davison, and then also a lot of baseball players, Jason LaRue, Adam LaRoche, yeah, a lot of those guys. So, and a lot of
Awesome.
them are hunters too. And I'm
Hmm.
pretty good friends. I love watching golf too. I'm pretty good friends with a lot of the golfers. Brian Harmon, the guy who won the British Open this year or the
Yeah.
Open
Hmm.
Championship. He lives down in near Sea Island. Davis Love III. I've worked on a few of his bows. Steve Stricker. There's a lot of golfers that are hunters, so I get to chit chat with them. Kevin Kisner, which he lives out there near Augusta. So
Hmm.
yeah, I chit chat with them. They're all big hunters, and help them from time to time and, work on stuff of theirs if they need it.
Oh, well, you've got quite the resume inside that inside that shop, man.
Yeah.
You seem like it seemed like you got it all figured out. Let me see. All right, so my next question would be, can you talk about all right, you kind of touched on the first half, so let's go ahead and say being you've touched on the people, kind of talk about the relationships. I mean, being in the outdoor industry and inside that little shop that you had, kind of talk about the relationships that it's helped you form in this business here.
Yeah, the relationships, I mean, I learned it seems like the outdoor industry is really, really big, but it's actually small. So, growing up, I guess that's just my personality, meaning, just you make sure that you don't burn any bridges. You treat people like you wanted to be treated. You try to stay humble. And through all that, as long with, having that's what brought me to the dance. Actually, that's what got me involved with Realtree is, David started coming to the store and, this is really what I want to say take me to the next level, or definitely a crossroads in my career. Is I was shooting tournaments. I had my store. The store, any small business, it takes a little time to get rolling on the store. And we were starting to get some traction and stuff. Well, David started coming to the store, and I know anybody that's an outdoorsman, long before social media, and even now social media, you'll see some ads or print ads and stuff. Like, I used to notice when people would anchor, they'd have their hand behind, they'd have bad form, they wouldn't even have a peep in the bow. You could tell it was a model
Mm-hmm.
that was holding the bow that didn't even look like an archer, so that the bow was not set up, the person wasn't set up. So I kind of had a pet peeve with that. I was like, man, that's not proper form. So whichever company was using that, whether it was a sight manufacturer or Rest or whatever, they got this guy shooting a bow. Anybody that's a halfway seasoned archer, they're going to look at that and say, there's no validity there, because they've got, it'd be about like me, holding a bat, wrong. And, like I'm doing a bat ad and I don't even hold the bat correctly, cross armed and trying to swing a bat. You're going to be like, well, that company don't know poop from Shinola. So I'm not going to, put any validity with that company. So I say all that to tell you that, like with David Blanton back in the day, way back in the 90s, this was VHS long before DVDs.
Right.
There was only like 3 or 4 hunting shows out, and they were on the TNN or ESPN, as long before we had 300 and something shows on the Outdoor Channel and such. So when David came in, I said, look, I was just happy to be a part of it, working on their bows. And I never dreamed of going across the country killing all these deer and stuff like that. So just knowing that I may have fletched an arrow, worked on a bow that went and killed a 150-inch buck in Wyoming, that was just a huge pride factor for me.
Right.
So I told David, David, you guys have the #1 hunting video series as well as the #1 hunting show in the country. I said, I'm not saying I'm the archery god by no means, but because I'm close to you guys, I would offer my services, and or I'd be glad to help in any way if you've got celebrities or country music singers, because back then they were taking a lot of those people hunting with them. I said, let me get them set up correctly, or so that they have a good experience. Because you can imagine a country singer comes and going to go do a bow hunt in Texas with Realtree, and he feels intimidated and he's not set up and he misses a deer, and it's just a bad experience, and then he's going to put the bow down. Whereas I wanted to make sure he had a good experience and he was real confident and really enjoyed shooting where he shoots tight groups going out there. So he's going to have a good experience. He's going to be happier, and he's going to continue shooting. And that's going to just make more people want to shoot archery. And then plus I would help David and them, and they would be more accurate, hopefully, and they would be more successful. And he said, I didn't know how he was going to take that, because a lot of times they were having like, teenagers that work at some of the mass merchant stores set their bows up. So I didn't know how he was going to take that, but he said, you're exactly right, Trav. He goes, that is exactly right. He goes, you're right. So from that point on, like, I set up a bow for Sammy Kershaw, and then, so a lot of the people were coming in my shop, Jeff Foxworthy. I was setting up their bows, making them have a good experience, and I took care of all their needs. Didn't charge a thing for that, other than just what parts I had. I mean, it wasn't like I charged them, thousands of dollars or anything like that. I just I wanted them to have a good experience. And then I started doing more stuff behind the scenes. So, even to this day, which that's been, uh, well, gosh, it's been almost 30 years now of doing that. And I still do that, meaning like I'm not, that's what brought me to the dance. That is what I've built my career on. And then to answer your question, networking, meaning like you get to meet so many people and you make them have a pleasant experience. And then you get accepted within the, celebrities or the pro athletes. They say, Travis knows what he's talking about. He'll be glad to help you. He's trustworthy. He's not going to take advantage of, us being a professional athlete or anything like that. And, I hopefully I've built a decent reputation and personality. And then, then it snowballs, So a lot
Right.
of people look and see us working at Bone Collector and they think, man, I want to do that for a living. And they think it happens overnight. But, if you deep dive like you and I are doing today,
Right.
man, there's 30, 35 years of legwork that's been done to get to this point. So people don't need to look at it as I want to be on TV or I want to do this certain thing or this point in my career and I want it to be a destination. You need to enjoy and absorb the whole journey, throughout the
Mhm.
whole thing because it is a ride.
Oh yeah,
I
for
hope that
sure.
answered your question.
Oh yeah, it does. It does. I
Yeah.
mean, I think you went into pretty much all the detail I was looking for. Yeah, and I would say that some of your answer kind of overlaps with what I'm trying to do with my uh budding career. And in terms of me trying to make a name inside the broadcasting and journalism type of world here, I was told by a mutual friend of mine that it's not really well, part of it is what you know because you got to have some experience behind you in terms of trying to get a good job as well. But one big thing about it is really who you know. Where if you make a good impression with this person, it's going to go from this person's mouth to this person's mouth to this person's mouth, and it's eventually going to blow up bigger than what you think.
That's exactly right.
And it comes from that first impression, and I can honestly understand your point about not really charging an arm and a leg for it because I mean uh you're not in business anymore as an archery shop. I mean that's your stuff down there. Any really pieces that you put on, yeah, charge for that. But I mean, like you said, it's not an arm and a leg.
No, no. And
No.
you got to look at it as your career goes. If you're
Mhm.
passionate, if you pursue something that you're passionate, you never feel like you worked a day in your life. And then
Absolutely.
consider it, consider it you're planting seeds. Meaning
Hmm.
like you may not know it, but like working on this guy's bow right here, he may recommend you to two other people that will come to you and or offer you a job, so you never know by having someone, if you're interested in journalisms and broadcasting and stuff like that, you never know when you may interview someone that may introduce you to someone. That's why you don't
Hmm.
burn bridges and or don't take anyone, treat anyone that don't treat someone that the way you don't want to be treated, because you want to make sure that you make a good impression with them, and then that way whenever your name comes up, there's not a negative thought about meeting you or anything, and they'll be glad to give you the old seal of approval.
Absolutely, because I mean you honestly don't know who this person actually knows because I mean you may really think that this person is working at some hole in the wall like in your case maybe a hole in the wall archery shop in a small town, but I mean they may have run across somebody who's fairly well known in terms of maybe in the outdoor industry or competition, or somebody who may own a bigger shop that you want to go work at and make some more money. And I mean you don't know who's in that figurative contact list.
Yeah, exactly,
Hmm.
exactly. And I've seen it so many times, meaning like, my wife asked me like that, says, like you spent an hour talking to that guy. Why did you do that? And I'm like, well, I mean, you just treat someone like you wanted to be treated, and then
Yeah.
it'll come full circle. Like that guy would, might have been he turns out he's going to be the VP of marketing at a company that we're working with, and he had a
Hmm.
good impression of me 3 years ago. And I tell my wife, I say, you see how that worked? And she goes, yeah, I do
Hmm.
now. I said, whereas if I would have been a horse's butt, that guy's like, no, that T-Bone, he's a stick in the mud. I ain't giving him the time of day.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if it comes to like you're fixing somebody's bow, I mean, as soon as you get done and if they have to pay you for whatever that got done with it. I mean, it's not automatically, all right, here's your bow, get out. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I mean, you can
No,
sit
no.
there, I mean, and you can show that you can carry on a meaningful conversation with somebody, whether it be about the bow. Once you're done with the bow, talk about something else, whether it be a shared
Yeah.
interest in hunting or shared interest in sports, or
Yep.
or or if there's anything that you share interest in. I mean, you sit there and talk about it, and then finally, once that topic runs out, it's like, hey, it's been incredible, and we've sat in here for an hour and a half, 2 hours talking, and we were done 2 hours ago.
Yeah. You're building a relationship.
Oh, absolutely. So in terms of favorites inside the dojo, is there a favorite bow build that you've had? But the more I think about it, it's kind of a loaded question. Well, whenever I put it down there, I figured I'd ask it regardless because with each year technology advances and those stuff gets better. So I'll preface I'll preface with saying up to now, is there a favorite bow build that you've had come out of there?
Uh, nothing that I guess my favorite one, which is this is going to be kind of a weird answer. I like them all just because I like getting the new innovations and I like
Yeah.
working on them to like say, because where do you take a compound bow? Like every year I ask myself, I'm like, it's quiet, it's fast. I mean, what are we going to do to it next? And then to see all the engineering designs and innovations and stuff and things that we may have talked about come to life and say like, here they did it again. Can't believe it, and just I love that each year. So I get to work on those kind of things and share them with the public and stuff. So that's always neat. But the one thing that was been eye opening is when David had asked me, you may not even remember this. I played a character, or how I got the name T-Bone is because I played a character with Jeff Foxworthy. This is what started me in video and TV side of it. Was back in 1999, and I played a character beside Jeff Foxworthy, and we needed to come up with a name. And they said, we need you to play a character next to him. He played a character called Willie. He had in the fake Bubba teeth and
Okay.
the floppy hat and stuff like that. And he goes, we need you to play a character. And he said, but we got to call you something different than Travis. And I never had been called T-Bone a day in my life. And I just threw it out there. It just came to mind, 5 minutes before we're beginning to film the first time. And I said, what about T-Bone? I said, that's kind of rednecky hickified. I said,
Right.
it's easy to remember. And he said,
Right.
okay, we'll call you T-Bone. T-Bone it is. And I thought, we're going to film this. I got 15 minutes of fame. And then, I'll go back to working in the shop. Never knew where it was going to take us. But part of that character, they said, can you come up with a character that kind of sidelines what he's got going on? So I had an old flannel coat and a ripped up shirt, and I put my own Bubba teeth in. I had a hat with a bill on it about twice as long as any other bill. And but the cool thing is, to answer your question, is I built a bow rather than having a brand new bow and shooting it, to go along with the character as a prop. I took a whitetail hunter, which was probably the most popular selling bow in the late 70s and early 80s,
Mm-hmm.
real old. So I knew that anybody watching this is going to be like, oh, wow, look, he's got that old bow. It had 6 wheels on it. I put a fishing pole on it. So I had a fishing pole with a buzz bait on it. And then, I had a Allen wrenches for a sight. But the only thing that was new about it was I had a T handle, a hinge release. So, it was like everybody that didn't know me or know my background, they'd say, they could tell by the release, like, hey, this guy knows how to shoot. So I was shooting it with a T handle tournament style release, but
Mm-hmm.
everything else about it was just pure hickified. The seasons never change. You got fishing
Mm-hmm.
and you got hunting. So that was probably one that I was proud of because everybody talked about. We nicknamed her Sadie.
Uh-huh.
So the bow's name is Sadie. I still got her.
Oh,
But
wow.
that was a turning point because everybody talked about that in the early 90s and late 2000s. It's like T-Bone's bow, man. I can't believe he shoots that thing so well.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a unique answer. I mean, and honestly, that answers the question perfectly, but it's a unique answer. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
Wasn't expecting that. But no, I don't think I've seen the video. I'll definitely go look it up because I mean, like you said, it was back
Yep.
in '99. I was born in '99, so
Yeah.
it may have popped up in like a memory in like an online memory with somebody somewhere. But
Yeah.
yeah, I will definitely go look it up.
Yeah, we do some
Yeah.
old throwbacks to the T-Bone character from yeah, that came along in '99, and
Hmm.
we used that character off and on through till about 2005 or so, and then it'll be in there occasionally. Yeah, we've had some good times with that character with Foxworthy and myself.
I mean, and that's one hilarious man, you know.
Oh yeah.
I know my dad was the one that actually introduced me when I was I'd say maybe 6 or 7 when he actually introduced me to Jeff Foxworthy's stand up, and
Yeah.
I've always loved listening to him ever since.
Yeah, we get it. It's definitely, as a good Southern country folks, we get that kind of cute comedy for sure.
Hmm. For sure. So next up on the list, I mean, there are scenarios that we could name off in hunting where adjustments would need to be made. Examples could include like moving locations to follow animal movement or whatever animal you may be hunting, or making more than one food source. I mean, the kind of life costs for the same. I hope you don't mind me touching on this because you mentioned it earlier. So you ended up losing your leg after an unfortunate diagnosis. Um, I'm mentioning this because it reminds me of stories I've been told by my family about my great uncle Lenny. He uh he ended up losing his leg when he was 16. uh from what I've been told about him, this shows that he didn't let it affect him for to do what he had the desire to do. He always got outdoors, planted gardens, he went fishing, he went hunting along the fishing and hunting along the I think it's along the Oconee River down here in Wheeler County and all that stuff. I mean, I've always heard, I think my mama would tell me that sometimes he'd hunt on ground, but he'd also like hop on one leg up the stairs and get in a tree blind. But I mean, but basically, from what a two-legged person would normally do, he did just as easy. So the question I want to ask, like, what was the timeline in terms of you returning to things you know and love to do?
I actually am still adapting to that. Meaning I still am, getting out there. I work on bows, and I still, I can ride my four wheeler, and I drive with, I had drive with hand controls now and such, and I'm able to hunt. I'm not with my size, with my age and my size, I'm not able to hop around like your uncle.
Hmm.
So I sure wished I, could, but we're working on losing some weight, but it didn't jump on here quick, so it's not coming off that quick. So, but we're working towards it. But yeah, I wished I was a little more mobile than what I am, but I am still able to get out. I can, I shot a couple of does just last Monday, actually. So, I'm able to get in ground blinds. We've got things set up. It's not quite as easy to travel like I used to, but yeah, I'm still able to scratch that outdoor itch for sure. Fishing a lot. Like I say, I can transfer over to my four wheeler. I ride the four wheeler around the property and stuff. But the one thing that I'm wanting to work up towards is it, and I've told people this. I've been very transparent, meaning if I don't ever get to hunt another deer again, I'm blessed. I've already went on way more trips than I even thought I would, halfway get to go on. So if I don't kill another cockroach in my life, I've done well. But
Hmm.
I have such a passion for land management and working on land and taking a rough piece of property. I want to be able to get back in my skid steer. I got a skid steer as well as, tractors, and I want to be able to, transfer into those things so that I can continue doing that type of work. Cause I just, it's so therapeutic to me and I love doing that. So, uh, you know, uh, that's what my main goal is to do. So, I'm trying to get to that point, but yeah, no, I can still hunt, still bow hunt, still, shoot a rifle, still, shoot. We got targets out through here. So I'm still able to do things, just got to adapt to the new normal.
If I'm not mistaken, I'll actually follow up this too. I mean, of course you brought up your size from what I've known about him. Of course, I think after I was born, he had already died. But from what I've been told about him, he wasn't exactly a small man either. So you mentioned your size and all.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly how big he was, but uh, I guess hopping around on one leg. I guess I mean when he started I guess from his teenage years, I guess adapted to it and just started doing it again. Got that one leg strong enough to hop.
Yeah.
So in terms of adjustments, you mentioned the majority of ground blind hunting, and I know you mentioned the hand controls for driving as well. I mean, is there any other adjustments that you've made aside from the driving and the ground hunting?
Yeah, like I'm working on, once I lose some more weight, a
Hmm.
lot of people they, say, well, why don't you get a prosthetic leg? Well, it's above the knee amputation, so I only have like a 9-inch stump left of my upper thigh, so
Hmm.
I don't have a real long, because I had to take so much of my leg, I don't have a real long stump left. And then the other thing is on my other foot, the one that's left. I cut my last 3 toes off when I was a teenager in a motorcycle wreck. So a dirt bike accident actually.
Hmm.
So they sewed them back on, but they don't really work. So I don't have the best balance in the world. So that's another thing that kind of hinders me. My good leg is only about a 65%.
Okay.
So with that said, I have to really baby it. I can't afford to have any accidents and such. So I get around on a wheelchair, and then also I have a walker too, so I can get around with the walker. But yeah, not there's no way that, with my size and stuff, I can bounce up. One thing, another lot, I can try those things, and I
Right.
probably could do it. But the thing that people don't understand is I can't afford failure, meaning like I can't
Right.
afford to fall down a set of steps and damage an elbow or a shoulder. Then I can't get around, and it really hurts my mobility, which, you got to have those things for transferring into a shower, going to the bathroom, getting
Hmm.
in and out of a truck, traveling down the road. I got to have my arms and my elbows and my shoulders and stuff, or otherwise I'm really, hurting. So I got to preserve what I got. I
Right.
can't just be taking chances. I probably could do those things, but I can't afford to have a failure because then I'm really set back. So
It's not really worth that risk.
no, exactly,
Right.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, I've fallen a few times, and it really sets you back quite a bit. So
Hmm.
I've learned to, right out of the gate, I was almost like Rocky. I went to a therapist to learn how to redo a lot of things, and I was like, man, I got this. I'm going to do this, that, and the other. And I fell a few times, and I seen real quickly like, whoa, you need to, pump the brakes and be safe. You got to be
Right.
smart about this. So I've been that way since then.
Okay, I got you. So I haven't asked this yet, but I mean, what all types of hunting have you done? I mean, I know down here in South and down here in Georgia, I mean, you primarily it's deer hunting, and I know that there's different types, but we're inside deer season now. I mean, I know there's deer, hogs, and squirrels. I mean, there's all sorts of hunting that's available to do, but is is there anything, or what kind of hunting have you done, and is there something you haven't crossed off your list yet?
Yeah, like I said, we've been real fortunate with our show to travel all across the country. So, yeah, I've taken pronghorn, mule deer, elk, mountain lion, aoudad, nilgai. All of these are free range and stuff. Lots of whitetail, black bear. There's certainly a few species that I haven't gotten, but I never. So many hunters gauge themselves as successful by the more they kill, but honestly, I'm not that way. I love whitetail. I love whitetail hunting just because they're so diverse. They're in most all the states, and the way you hunt them in Montana ain't the way you hunt them in Florida, and the way you hunt them in Maine ain't the way you do it in Texas. So, and there's a lot of subspecies with them. So that's why I like them. They're almost like a fingerprint. Each buck that comes out is gonna, be a different. They're all different. So you never know when a world record or a big one's going to come out. I love the whole management process and the working on the land, and it's more than just like, hey, I'm going to go out and hunt today and hopefully I see something. It's more of the chess game of, building food plots, raising deer, and seeing what you can build. I love all that about it. But to answer your question, I mean, if I had to pick something, if I again, I stand by this. If I don't ever get to kill another deer again, I'm absolutely very, very satisfied and blessed. But the one thing I would like to kill, or that was on my list that I never did get to go, it was I'd love to do a float trip for a Yukon moose, archery hunt for a Yukon moose. That's what I would like to do.
Oh,
That's
that's
the
cool.
one, just because I'm, you can tell by talking to me, I'm really into the FOC and the penetration and the flight of
Hmm.
the arrow and all that. I'd like to see how it works against a 1,600-pound animal. That'd be pretty neat.
Oh
So
yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
yeah,
And I know one of the next most popular hunts that you'll see on, I guess you say, outdoor television. You know, whitetail, mule deer, and then you've got a lot of people who are big elk fans. I know
yeah,
elk are huge, but you kind of take that up a notch when you go hunt moose.
yeah. They're about double the size of moose is. So yeah, I've killed elk and I've killed a nail guy, which a nail guy is, it's an Indian animal, but they were brought over here in the 1920s in South Texas around the King Ranch. But so they're
Mhm.
free range. There's a herd of about 28,000 that run all over the south end of Texas. They were going to raise them over here because they're built for dry, hot conditions, and they thrive in that. But I think they abandoned the idea. So they're a very large antelope. They're about 750 to 800 pounds. But
Oh
I
wow,
was able to, yeah, I was able to. It's the best tasting meat I've ever eat of anything I've ever eat. Nail guy is by far the best.
oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Next question. I actually did forget to ask this, but it's a great follow up. So what's your go-to, I guess you say go-to feed for when it comes to land management and like you said, growing deer? I mean, some people are strict corn pourers. You go food plots with like alfalfa, clover, soybeans. I know a lot of people have said, and I know deer are really big apple eaters as well.
Yeah.
I know some people will do salt blocks as well, or either pour out salt on the ground as well alongside the corn. I mean, but do you have a go-to?
Well, there's it's all important, and it depends on what area you're at and what you're trying to achieve, and or the amount of land you have dictates what would be best for you. If you're a farmer and have a lot of open land, by all means, I love soybeans. You can't hardly plant enough soybeans. But if you've got just small tracts of land and you can only plant like a half acre, that's not gonna they're gonna wipe that out in a couple of weeks. It just doesn't make sense to plant soybeans. So something that that has worked for me personally. I'm not saying this is for everybody, but for me personally in my area, yeah, we do supplemental feeding. A lot of people plant summer plots and spring and summer plots in the spring, and then they'll till the ground up again in the fall. With us having inconsistent rain and you're having to worry about that, and then plus you only have a couple of places to plow up, and it gets expensive having to turn the dirt, twice a year. I recommend, and what works for us is we plant the food plots. We just did it the last 2 days. We've been busting our hump the last 2 days getting the food plots done, but we got them all in waiting for this rain. We got 3 days, hopefully, of rain that's supposed to start this afternoon. But what the blend that I've put together or has worked best for me and is Buck Forge oats. It is a certified oat, and it's formulated for and built for heavy browse. It's drought tolerant. It handles heavy browse, so it bounces back real well. It also is real cold tolerant, so it handles cold temperatures and it stays at a palatable level. So it doesn't like a Goliath oat or a black oat or those kind of oats. Everybody thinks to produce those for tonnage, just like silage for cows. With this Buck Forge oat, it stays low to the ground, so it stays in that 2 to 6 or 8 inch length, which is great for browsing. And it stays young, tender, supple, and it's real palatable for the deer. Whereas like the black oats and the Goliath oats grow so much that they get mature and the deer won't eat them. There's lots of tonnage there, but if they're not eating them, it's not worth anything. Along with that Buck Forge oat, we mix in perennials. I mix in 3 types of clover, 2 types of alfalfa, which alfalfa doesn't do too well in Georgia, but I usually get a season out of it. And then also it has chicory in there, which is real high in protein and real drought tolerant, and it handles heavy grazing as well. We mix all that in there. It grows a little bit mixed with the Buck Forge oats. They will absolutely murder the Buck Forge oats. It's a great kill plot because they love it all through, October, November, December, January, and then it starts to play out in February, and then usually it's done by February. Well, underneath all that, the those perennials are popping. So you go in and spray in late February, early March. You spray and kill all the grasses and the weeds, and then let the perennials thrive. So then I'm getting nearly 12 months out of until time to plow again. So all through spring, I've got, lush clovers, chicory, and alfalfa for the turkeys and the deer. So I don't have to plow the ground again. So I'm getting basically one time of planting, I'm getting a full 12 months worth of, heavy grazing and food plots that look lush. On all you got to do is just a little bit of maintenance. And then also we do supplemental feeding, which we feed protein all the time, Big and J. And then also we use some buck muscle, which is a company based out of Meriwether here. They've built a product that is unbelievable. The reason I like it is it's high in protein. The deer really like it equally as good as they do corn, but the coons do not. So the coons won't get in it because it's powdery and they will not eat it. So if anybody's ever poured out corn, they know how many coons get all in your corn. Well, you don't have to worry about that with this product, it and the Big and J. So we put protein feeders out. We do have mineral sites, but usually they don't get hit that much for us because we have so many minerals that are mixed in with our feed that we have. They don't crave the mineral sites. But yeah, a lot of people put out that. And then also, like when we're trying to hone in on a deer, we put our trough feeders where the protein is, we put them in areas that we're not going to hunt and that are really up close in areas that we're not going to hunt, so that we're dragging deer throughout the property. I don't mind if the deer never hit the trough feeders in daylight hours. I'm fine with them doing it all at night. And then what we'll do is we'll backtrack the deer towards the bedding area, and then we'll put out appetizer piles, is what I call them, and start hand feeding, a half a bag of corn, and then watch your cameras till you get them daylighting, get the deers daylighting, and then you set up and try to hunt them based off of where they're traveling from their bedding area to those trough feeders and or the food plots.
I got you.
Yeah, and the corn, and to add to that, the corn we actually bathe it in soybean oil, and that's something that has really worked well. One, it makes it shinier. You know how corn can be real powdery when you put
Yeah.
it in a feeder, it clumps up sometimes, and or it clogs up your spin feeders if you've got it in there. We bathe it in soybean oil. So one, it makes it taste better, adds maybe a little protein to it because it's got oil on it. But the biggest thing is it works better in feeders. And if you put it on the ground, it can handle a couple of rains because that oil displaces the water so your corn doesn't rot.
Oh, that's smart. That's smart.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that. I'm getting a lot of insight out of this. Uh, like you mentioned this a good while back. I mean, the little branch or log trick that you mentioned about whenever
Yeah.
you would lay, I think you would lay it across some corn. Kind of refreshed my memory about that little hack you talked about.
Yeah. I couldn't believe how that it caught so much attention. It
Mhm.
really, it works. I've been doing it for years, but you put corn out in a pile, and the deer kind of, they're not dumb. They know their desire for corn is more important than, they learn to they learn to overcome their fear of, like, hey man, that tree stand hadn't been here, now all of a sudden it's there, or that ground blind wasn't there for the last 9 months, but now all of a sudden it's there. So they're leery of it. It takes them a while to get used to it. So if you have a ground blind or something like that, and you put the log this way, where it's straight pointing right at you, the deer, if it's in a pile, they're just going to come and face you because they're like, if I'm got to look one way, I'm going to look in this direction of this object that wasn't there for the last 9 months. I got to keep an eye on this. That's out of place. So
Mm-hmm.
that don't look natural. That don't look like no bush. That looks like a blind. That looks like a tree stand. There's something up in that tree. Let me face this way. If there's going to be danger, it's going to come from this way. So they end up facing that way. So if you're in the stand and you can't get a shot because the deer's facing this way, and then all of a sudden it gets dark. Well, if you put the log there, once the deer, they don't want to straddle it, they don't want to face it, they want to come towards it, because they're not going to stand over the log and eat. They're going to line up just like this to the log. So then they're broadside, so it presents you a shot, and it progresses the evening quicker. So if you're like waiting for the deer to turn and it's getting dark quick, and you're like, oh man, my light's fading, it's going to make the evening progress 20 or 30 minutes quicker so that they come out there and they're broadside and you get the shot that you're waiting on.
Awesome, awesome. I love that hack. Love it. Clicking the wrong button. I mean, so what's been your favorite place to visit and hunt? I know we touched on it with competition archery, so the answer may be different with when it comes to you the hunt you've loved the most.
Um, what the area that I've hunted or the actual hunt?
Well, the oil, I mean, is there a
My
difference
favorite,
in your answer?
yeah, my
Oh,
favorite state to hunt
mhm.
um is Kansas. I like
Okay.
Kansas the best, and I love the backdrop of Kansas. But there's a lot of memorable hunts. A lot of them. One would be the first time going to Iowa. It took me a long time to draw this tag, but it ended up having to be the first year of Bone Collector. Nick and I went up there, and I all I ever wanted, like I would love to at one point in my life, this was years ago, I'd like to kill a 150-inch deer, in the Midwest. So that was a goal of mine with my bow, and we did that in Iowa. My first tag in Iowa, I killed a 161-inch buck with my bow, and
Wow.
it was kind of surreal because it was the first year of Bone Collector. Nick was the one filming me, and we were crying like schoolgirls up in the tree. And so I got that buck. That's all the way back in 2008. You can look at that on all of our libraries on My Outdoor TV, the Outdoor Channel app, and then but Kansas is probably my favorite just because I've bought a couple of farms out there in the past and I've hunted them. I've killed my biggest buck with a bow was killed off of one of my farms. It was a 183-inch buck that I killed in 2020. I just love Kansas. You can bait there. It's so open. There's not very much population of people, and yeah, I like Kansas. But they're all special. I mean, I love Texas. I like Kentucky. Iowa. I mean, I've had some very fantastic hunts across the country.
Is that buck the one that's your profile picture on Instagram?
I don't even remember. I don't even know which
Yeah.
picture that is.
I probably wouldn't be able to give you a good look at it on
Is
here.
it at night? If it's a nighttime picture, then no. If it's a
Yeah, yeah, I
nighttime,
think I think it's dark in the photo.
yeah. If I
That's
think,
not it. Okay.
yeah, yeah, that was a deer. I'm pretty proud of that as well because
Yeah.
that deer is a non-typical. It scored
Okay.
186, and I killed it right here at my house. I mean, like where I'm talking to you from, it was 400 yards from here.
Oh, okay. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, so I'm very
Nice.
proud of that deer too. So
Awesome.
yeah, that was in the same year, 2020. I
Oh,
killed
wow.
a
I mean, so you're
yeah
actually knocking out some big ones during the shutdown.
yeah. So I killed a 140-inch buck in Kentucky, and then 8 days later I killed a 183 in Kansas, and then 11 days later I killed a 161 with my bow here at my house, and then 2 weeks after that I killed a 186 with a muzzleloader here at my house.
Oh,
So
wow. Wow.
yeah, all by October 12th in 2020. Man, I mean, that was a lifetime worth of bucks. I mean, it was unbelievable. Great
You
year.
you done had you a good time by the end of
Oh yeah,
October.
that's right.
Let's see. If you had to choose and you could pick out one of your favorite animals you got the opportunity to harvest, whether it's a buck, elk, whatever, if you had to say, uh, well, I'll change it up instead of saying favorite because I've asked favorites for multiple questions. So I'll say that you had to work the hardest on, whether it's a buck, elk, dad, uh, pronghorn. I was like, what's one hunt that may stick out in your mind to where like there was a lot of hard work put into it and then it paid off in something good?
Yeah. Well, a lot of these hunts with the whitetails can be that way because it's a chess match,
Yeah.
not necessarily like physically demanding, but it certainly is a chess match. It's like it wears you down to a nub because it's like, man, we didn't do it this year. Hopefully he stays alive, so it wears you down mentally, and then you So there's several that are that way, and it's like, man, it's so rewarding because it adds to the pride factor of, man, it's been years and years of planning, of low stress, of trying to get just a chance at him, or how these deer can be in Georgia to make them be daylight. So there's a lot of whitetails that mean that way to me, but I don't know, probably a mule deer as far as physically challenging. There's a couple of mule deer hunts that, man, I'm not built for the mountain climbing for sure. So yeah, once I mean, I had to push myself to get them. So they were pretty. I mean, most people would not say they're too physically demanding, but for considering me and in the shape I'm in, that it was
Mm-hmm.
pretty rough. So the mule deer probably.
I got
I thought one of my elk hunts was gonna be that way, but it turned out we got him on the third day, so it didn't have to. It wasn't quite as bad.
I got you. I got you. Of course, I can understand when it comes to a mule deer hunt. I mean, just from watching people go on mule deer hunts. I mean, you've got that spot and stalk, and I know, which of course I know hardly ever do you see somebody get up in a tree and try to kill a mule deer. It's spot and stalk. You see them out in the field, get out and go after it, and and I
Yeah,
mean, just having to be quiet. I mean, if you come up on a hill, you better be sure that you don't get spotted, or it's more walking.
that's right.
Hmm. If there's
Do
someone
you,
out there who's always wanted to try their hand at getting outdoors and hunting, but doesn't know where or how to get the ball rolling, what would be your advice to them?
couple different things. Try to find you a good mentor, whether naturally you want a dad, older brother, uncle, something like that. But if you don't have that, try to find a good neighbor. Just have a good personality and try to find a neighbor or somebody that does it. Or another good place is chit chatting with people on you know on Facebook pages, and or finding somebody online. And or another good place is to meet somebody at your independent archery shops, or people that go to frequent the pro shops, and or like Bass Pro Shops or Cabela's and things like that. You can meet folks there that are that'll but meshes boards, all kinds of things online as far as like finding a hunting club, or just start forums and stuff like that. You can chit chat with people and join a group like that, and then before you know it, you're celebrating the outdoors and such, like you would want to do. And then there's a lot of good mentors out there like that, but you got to put yourself out there. They're not going to come knock on your door.
Right. Like it, sound advice. Next up on the list, as we near the end of this, I think I'll go back and ask a little question for myself. You kind of educate me as a beginner, as somebody who basically shoots, which is mostly a stock bow with no real personal modifications at the moment. In terms of an arrow rest, I mean, what would you say for somebody whose plan is to go piece by piece with it, in terms of budget wise, a good, I would say, bang for your buck arrow rest.
Yeah, a drop away rest would be well, bang for your buck. I would recommend a whisker biscuit. For Yeah, a lot of people like.
See, right now, what's on there right now is a whisker biscuit, because, but I've always heard some people, I don't know why, some people like to talk a lot of trash about it, but I don't really see what's the big problem with it at least at the
Yeah.
moment. But I've always heard that a lot of people lean more towards the drop away than the whisker
Well,
biscuit.
you saying bang for your buck. I highly
Oh, it's
recommend a
okay.
drop away rest too. But if
Okay.
it, if a budget is a problem, then I don't have a problem with the wicker for under about $80. You can't hardly beat a whisker biscuit, to be honest
Okay.
with you. For a good hunting, for checking off all the boxes, I like a whisker biscuit. However,
Okay.
a good drop away rest is hard to beat. And there's a bunch of them. I'm shooting the AAE Prophecy. QAD makes a good one. However, I will say QAD's quality is kind of slipping. There's a lot of movement in there now that there
Mm-hmm.
didn't used to be. I really like the HHA Virtus Rest. However, I just found out that they discontinued it. They're not making it anymore. So that was a good rest. The Ripcord, the Ripcord is also another good one. You want something that's going to stay up, that
Mm-hmm.
has full containment, just for most folks. The ones that are limb driven, they stay down and then they come up when you come to full draw. There's a lot of arrow for that arrow to fall off, and or if you draw the bow real fast, it'll flip it up and bounce around. Whereas you want something where you cock it into place, come to full draw, and it drops when you only shoot. You can let the bow down slowly and it'll stay up. So I'm really liking that AAE Prophecy. If money's not a problem, that's the one I would recommend. But QAD, which they've been making that quality archer design, they've been making that rest for quite some time. So it's a good one as well.
Okay, so it's okay. So you're in your opinion right now, there's nothing really to really there's nothing really bad to say about that about the Whisker Biscuit because in terms of I guess you could say stealth and quietness, I mean there's nothing to hear on a draw there either because I know I've heard you mention about with drop away rest. I've heard you talk about there's a risk of making some noise there too.
Yeah. Well, with the Whisker Biscuit, it doesn't. It's not quite as quiet, but it is quiet.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you don't have to worry about that. The things you have to worry about with a Whisker Biscuit is if you're hunting in cold temperatures and there's moisture in the whiskers, they will freeze.
No,
So
yeah.
therefore, the veins go through there. The other thing is, depending on the type of veins you have, you're going to wear your veins down, and or the veins wear the bristles down. When the bristles get wore, then that changes your center shot. So, I mean, everything that's got moving parts has pros and cons.
Yeah.
I'm just sharing the three cons with you on the Whisker Biscuit. But if you make sure that your Whisker Biscuit is still good and tight and you switch it out whenever it needs to be switched out, once it starts to get floppy or your group start opening up,
Mm-hmm.
then you'll be fine. And I don't think we have to worry about moisture freezing, down here in the South. I mean,
Right.
that's a rarity. But if you travel and was to go up north, those guys that hunt up there, you get a lot of snow and water and
Mm-hmm.
such in there. That's going to be a problem. So
Yeah, there's a risk there.
that's correct.
Okay. So in terms of I of course we already touched on the quality of the arrows, and that's one place you don't really want to skimp on. And I do plan on in the future, uh, going and getting better quality arrows. So there's nothing to really touch on else there. And arm stability that just touches that. I guess that would just go back to stabilizers, is to find a good stabilizer.
Yeah. Well,
In term,
stabilizer.
what I'm saying in terms of just basically keeping the arm still, getting that good shot. I guess that falls back to stabilizer.
Well, with yourself too, a lot of people associate using a bow with being extremely macho, where you're exerting a lot of muscles in your shoulders and arms.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, once you get the bow back, you just want just enough muscles to hold the bow back and just enough muscles to hold the bow up.
Okay.
Okay, so you just want that just enough for that, and so you really want to relax, have a relaxed grip, and don't fight it. Stare where you want the arrow to hit, not at the pin. Because if you start watching the pin, you're gonna follow it around, and it's gonna make you move even faster. So stare where you want to hit first. Don't stare at the pin. That's
Okay.
a common problem. A lot of people do is they watch the pin and don't watch where they want to hit. Just stare where you want it to hit, because you can't look at two things at once. Stare where you want it to hit. Pick a hair, pick an arrow hole. Say that's where that arrow is fixing to go, and then your pin will just kind of move slowly in the foreground. And then also your stabilizers. Yes, don't make it a stabilizer decision over like a 10 shot process, because you're
Yeah.
going to have to play with weights. It may take several days actually to kind of play with the lengths, the weights, the how you're holding it up, how it's affecting your oscillation. So yeah, be real open with that. And you don't have to have one,
Right.
but most people shoot a little better with one.
Okay. I got you. I really appreciate that. So next up, um, and of course I really take that I'll actually take that advice to heart and probably in the next day or so start putting that to use. Is there any plugging of shows or news that you've got coming up as we get close to the end here that you might want to put out there while you're here?
Yeah, no, just follow along with us on bonecollector.com. We post a lot of stuff on realtree.com as well. And then, of course, for me on social media, T-Bone Outdoors on, all the TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, of course, and as well as Twitter. You can follow us along on that, and same on Bone Collector. And our shows on the Outdoor Channel, but we're pretty proud also of My Outdoor TV. It's an app you can get. You can watch it on your app. You can see every episode of for all the one-time fee a month. I don't even know how much it is, $3 or $4 a month or something like that. But you can watch every episode of Bone Collector all the way back to 2008. So there's a whole bunch of laughing and good times, and hopefully a few gut piles on there too.
Awesome, awesome. So I guess we'll close out the show with this. Do you have any advice, just in general, when it comes to advice from me in general, as it comes to becoming better and better at sharpening my skills as an archer, becoming a better archer and becoming a better hunter? Is there any advice in general that you would give to somebody trying to actively learn?
Yeah, from an archery standpoint, no matter how your setup is, so many people want to buy more accuracy, and there is some truth to that. But let's just don't get focused on that. Meaning, I'd rather someone work on themselves a little bit rather than spending 2 hours searching on YouTube for a new hack or whatever. You could spend a valuable time out there behind the bow building muscle memory. So, another thing I would tell people is not to necessarily, I got to shoot 60 to 100 arrows a day. I'd rather them go outside and pour their heart and soul into about 10 arrows. Imagine that this is the only 10 arrows I'm going to get to shoot, and I got to make them count. The old saying, practice makes perfect. In my opinion, perfect practice makes perfect. So really try to pour your heart and soul into the shots as far as an archer goes. But as an outdoorsman, just try to be a sponge, try to be open-minded. Don't get so caught up in, I got to do this, or this guy did this. Don't be afraid to explore it. And I think people give these critters a little bit more credit than what they deserve. They think like the deer are just 100% out there, or trying to focus on, get away from us, which at the end of the day, there's only about three things that they're concerned about. They're concerned about sleeping, they're concerned about eating, and they're concerned about breeding. And
Mhm.
basically that's it.
Oh, hey,
So
yeah, that makes sense.
yeah. So all you got to do is just, intervene one of them categories, and you've got to play the wind a little bit and make sure it's on your side, and you'll get an opportunity. And enjoy it. Just celebrate it. Don't make it to be a job, or like have negatives. Try to enjoy it. Just like I told you about chasing a job or a career or anything like that. Enjoy the journey, man. It's just not a destination. And if you're out there thinking that I have to kill a deer to be happy, you're out
Mm-hmm.
there for the wrong reasons, man. There's
Mm-hmm.
so many. That's just a cherry on top, man. There's been plenty of time I've spent days and days and days in a stand and just cherish those moments. Meaning, I've had a great hunt and never killed a thing. There's been a lot of times of that. So make sure that you let it recharge your batteries, because in this day and age with hustle and bustle of electronics and working hard every day, and pressures at home and stuff like that, you get a chance to go outside and sit in a tree. You need to recharge your batteries and decompress a little bit, and then maybe if everything works out, you'll have some meat for the freezer too.
Oh, absolutely. Of course, I can remember a couple of times that I've gone out there and just looked, sat there and looked around and like taking in the scenery, and then all of a sudden one comes walking out.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, you can learn so much, and
yeah,
watching squirrels, and
yeah.
taking your binoculars and checking out acorns that are falling, and which trees loaded, and really think like, why are those, like you hear acorns fall, and then all of a sudden, why did that deer go to that tree? Well, it's because he heard them acorns falling. They're living out there every day. Try to immerse yourself in their world.
Hmm. I mean, honestly, it could also turn into, I guess you could say, a study session when it comes to basically learning habits.
Absolutely.
Hmm. Well, let's thank the sponsors one more time for today. Big thanks goes to the Merchants and Citizens Bank, Milton CPA Services, Riles Drug Store, jointly with Riles Outfitters, Law Office of Joseph I. Marchant, Vineyard Doodles, Turkey Creek Outfitters, Jason's Fast Loop, and Security State Bank. So let's give a big round of applause for anybody watching or listening to T-Bone. And first, I'll say again, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to sit down with me. I know honestly, you took a chance on somebody who's trying to grow their platform out here every day. And I've had fun, but I've also learned a lot too today, and I'm so appreciative of that. And of course, you were one of the big names on my list of dream guests, and I'm hopefully I can cross another one off sometime soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope in the near future that we make it to sit down and do something again.
Yep, sounds good, man. I appreciate you having me on. Yeah, just keep up the hard work and just keep going, man. Enjoy the ride.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. I'll certainly try to do that.